Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another Up the Dale podcast. We said in the last one with local cricket legend Mark Cookson that we were going to expand things out a little bit, and we've done so. These two gentlemen below me, Mr. Dan Allen and Tyler Ward, some of you will know from the YouTube mite that is Sanderstead Cricket Club down in Surrey. I'm not ashamed to say that these two gentlemen introduced me to local cricket podcasting, and a lot of what me and Dave have tried to do have been developed from what Sanderstead did with their Silly Point podcast. So welcome Dan, welcome Tyler, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Hello Neil.
Thank you.
Dave, once again, thanks for joining us, and you're going to be asking a few questions tonight yourself.
Yes, evening Neil, evening gentlemen. Very much looking forward to this one. Heard a lot of things about the famous Sanderstead podcast from Neil. So yeah, lots of hype to live up to, gents. Should be good.
What we're going to kick it off with is quite apt as what's happened today. There's been a big announcement about professional cricket restarting, county cricket restarting on the 1st of August. And we've discussed on Up the Dale about potential for recreational cricket starting. First of all, gentlemen, before we get into the fun questions, something a little bit more serious. First of all, where are you guys at down in Surrey in terms of Surrey Cricket Board and local support for recreational clubs and the potential for restarting?
Well, I mean, the truth is we don't know, because I don't think the local league boards or Surrey or anyone can say anything until they've got the all clear from the ECB or are waiting for whatever consultations they're having with the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. So everything's speculation. All I can say is we're ready to go. We're raring to go. All of the local clubs around us that we speak to, they're raring to go. So we just want to get going, especially apart from this week, especially with such great weather.
Absolutely. One thing that we were supposed to be starting tomorrow, and you're saying about the great weather, it's absolutely tipping down up here, but we were supposed to be starting our outdoor nets again tomorrow. They've had to be cancelled. Tyler, I mean, we mentioned before the podcast started about winter nets, and you guys were looking at, you were going, well, so were we. From a player's point of view, how difficult has it been for you in terms of having that optimism about starting a season, and now it's sort of having to restart that, really?
It's super frustrating, as I'm sure you can imagine. And as you might well know, we've got a new bunch of players. We've all been netting hard, getting on really well. That team morale is built, and then suddenly we're not starting. So it's just waiting for that okay and that go ahead to get playing. But on the flip side, there might be a strange positive outcome in that we've been so ready to go for so long. That might actually boost things when we get on the field. I think everyone will be up for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely concur with that. I think we've had discussions with players with our club in terms of what the feeling is about people's preparedness to actually get on with the game. And we've been absolutely amazed at the positivity. And in terms of a Sanderstead point of view, have you guys actually started any outdoor nets yet?
Yes, sorry, if I may. We started last Saturday. And then the Saturday just gone was unfortunately rained off, which is somewhat typical. So we've officially been going twice, but only had one session. So
it's a shame Saturday's rained off, because I was going to go up and do a bit of filming. Because I mean, last Saturday or the Saturday before, the first next Saturday was beautiful weather. I couldn't get up there, but I was going to go on Saturday. And we were going to record a Silly Point podcast, just live as it were, sort of 1 metre apart or 2 metres apart. But yeah, it didn't happen. But we will. Hopefully this Saturday, we'll film some nets.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. Be good to watch. Just the final thing about sort of getting ready to play again. Obviously, you've done some videos about groundwork, and obviously a lot of people pitching in with groundwork at your ground, which I've got to say, I'm a massive fan of the ground. I love my small enclosed ground, so the old sawmill appeals to me greatly. It must be great to see so many people pitching in to get the ground in readiness for any restart that does appear.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we've got a real sort of inclusive culture at Sanderstead, and we sort of hugely encourage a lot of the younger guys to get involved, and they do. They love it. I think people that joined us love the club so much that they just want to get involved and not just be a player, which is really, really good. And yeah, most of our ground is done by guys who are sort of 15 to 25 or something. And a lot of them know what they're doing because they've sort of worked up at the Oval. Yes. On the ground staff there. So the track we've got is top notch. Christy Sullivan, who's one of our well-known players, he's sort of number 2 or 3 groundsman at the Oval. So he really does know what's what, and he's sort of masterminded the way that our square really, really works. T, I mean, I don't know if you want to attest to what it's like as a player.
It's certainly improved over the years, that's for sure. But Sanderstead has a interestingly building history with Surrey County Cricket Club ground staff. We actually had Lee Fortis, who is the head groundsman, playing for our club for a short while, so it doesn't get much better than that, I don't think.
I've got to say, I mean, watching the videos, it looks an excellent track. There's not very often that you see, I know Dan obviously edits a lot of the videos, but you very rarely see the ball misbehave on a Sanderstead track, and that probably, like you say, it attests to the hard work that gets put in.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, it's got to be very dry late season for any sort of variable bounce. It doesn't happen much. It used to happen back in the day when I was a bowler. I loved it. I don't.
Well, by the sounds of it, you guys are raring to go, I think, as most of us are, if we get the go ahead. So fingers crossed, and fingers crossed, Dan, that'll give you an opportunity to get some videos out and some more cricket on YouTube soon.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to move into some of the fun stuff now, as we've done with a lot of our guests. We've got 2 sets of questions, some based on altered slightly to involve some of the filming that Dan's done, as well as some Sanderstead stories, hopefully. And then Dave's going to follow that up with some of the dressing room characters. So we'll get into the first one. I'll let you two guys divide them up between you. First of all, I want to take one of you back to where it all started, how you got into cricket, and what sort of previous teams you actually played for.
I'm sure Dan's is a lot further back than mine. So can you remember that far, Dan?
Well, yeah, I can actually. Do you want me to go first? I mean,
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
I was born and brought up in a village in Leicestershire called Great Glen, and that's where I played my cricket. My father was he was the groundsman. He was a player. His brother played, and I was born into a cricket family. And that's where I played. All my mates, we played cricket there. That's where I played until I was 18. I went to university, had 3 years in Norwich at the University of East Anglia, and then got a job, moved down to London. And indeed, 2 of the guys that I played with in Norwich were Sanderstead members. And so I said, well, look, guys, I need somewhere to play cricket. They said, well, come to Sanderstead. So that's what I did, and I've been there ever since. That was 1986. So I think this is my 35th year at Sanderstead.
Wonderful.
They're the only 3 clubs. I mean, the university club is sort of
Yeah.
And then I sort of played a little bit for a club called Clarendon Park Cricket Club in Leicestershire, which is quite a sort of top club. Played in the Notts Gun and Moor Alliance League and had quite a few county players go through them. So I just played a few sort of touring games with them.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. We're going to move on to the next one, which is, do either of you remember your first ever game? And how did it go?
I do loosely. I mean, following on from the previous question, I probably played because my old man played as well. If some of you watch Sanderstead, you might know him. And shout out to all the mums and dads and parents that do actually play cricket and get their children into cricket. And my first game was for Sanderstead, in fact. So I've been there all my life. Not that it's the longest of lives. And we played Reigate Priory. I think that would have been under 9s. How do I do? I have no idea, but I'm sure it's great fun doing so, as I'm still playing cricket today. So
Excellent. Well, as I say, that goes hand in hand with what we're trying to achieve, Tyler, because we were going to start an under-9s team this year to get things rolling out of All-Stars, so we can concur that everybody are very enthusiastic at that age. So, yeah, it's definitely what we're trying to achieve as well. Right, this is one that's divided opinion so far amongst a lot of the guests. Who was your first cricketing hero?
Well, should I go first on this one, T? Because age thing again. My first was David Gower. As I said, I was Leicestershire, and David came to Leicestershire in 1975. I was about 10 or 11. I got to know him. He was a good friend of my father. And so, you know, I got to know quite a few of the players, and Gower was just, I mean, he was just a sort of breath of fresh air when he came on the scene. You two guys, I don't know, Neil, if you're young enough to remember him when he first came out. You're probably not, but Dave certainly isn't.
Not quite, no, more early 80s for me, yeah.
Yeah, but when he came into Leicestershire in the sort of 76, that hot summer, he was just incredible. And yeah, you were watching. You knew that you were watching a genius being sort of created. Really, a great.
Mine was a little bit more recent. Starting kind of the age I did, when I must have been 10 years old. So I haven't been playing for long. The first big series that I remember watching on TV was the 2005 Ashes. And that's not a bad series to remember as your first international series. So Freddie Flintoff and Shane Warne were probably my picks from either side. I don't think I need to say much more about them.
Is that where the leg spin comes from then, Tyler?
Yes. Not that it's continued long into my first 11 career, but
yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. I just thought I'd throw that one in there. I know Dan's normally a big fan on the videos of your bowling, Tyler. So,
well, it's great when it pitches.
It takes wickets. It takes wickets.
Well,
take a look in the book.
Yeah, Filth gets wicket.
Dave will not mention leg spin. Will not mention you bowl leg spin either. This could get tragic otherwise.
Allegedly.
Right, we'll move on to the next one. Is there anybody currently who you admire out of the current crop of international cricketers?
T, you do, mate.
Oh, anyone I admire? Anyone playing international first-class cricket, I think. It's definitely tough in many ways. I don't know. I think any of the young guns, to be honest, I think I can probably relate a little closer to them. And if I was in their position, knowing that you hopefully got a big and successful career ahead of you, that's quite exciting. So the likes of Ollie Pope, who's recently on the scene, has obviously done tremendously well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ollie because my son James, he played in the Surrey under-15s with Ollie and Sam Curran and Verdi, and Ollie. I've watched him since he was about 10, playing in sort of age group cricket and district cricket, and you could see that he was the one that he just had this determination and self-belief that most of the others didn't have, and it wasn't necessarily better skill-wise, but he just had that thing, that drive that meant he was always likely to get there. So it's really
no pun intended there, Dan.
No, you're right. Absolutely, there's no pun intended, as usual.
Excellent. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a very bright future at the moment. I'm personal favourite is someone like Tom Banton. It's certainly somebody I would absolutely pay to watch. But yeah, I think it's very exciting, this crop of youngsters, that are coming through at the moment. Right, we've done Tyler's first game at Sanderstead at 9-10 years old. Dan, can you remember your first game for Sanderstead?
Well, I can. It was 1986. It was against RACS, which is a Kent Prem club and it was a Sunday fixture. And I can remember it, but I can't remember that well. I sort of bowled a few overs, got a couple of wickets, but I can't remember it that well. It wasn't a particular highlight, but it was a club that we went to play every year on the Sunday at their place. It was one of those sort of day matches. It was always on the Sunday, the last round of the Open, so it's sort of mid-late July, and it was we always had a really, really good game with these guys. So the first one wasn't that memorable, but I've had a few memorable games at RACS over the years since.
Excellent. Well, going on from that, talking about memorable matches, from both a playing and a filming point of view, so I imagine Dan's going to do filming and Tyler might do playing. What's the favourite match that you've actually either filmed or played in?
Dan, do you want to start with film?
Oh, blimey! I mean, this is a very difficult question, Neil, because there have been so many now. Probably the match that kind of had everything, and if you'd scripted it, you wouldn't have believed it, was a game in 2017 against Addiscombe, where one of their players got 130 with 16 or 17 sixes, and he reached his 100 without having hit a 4. His only badges are sixes, and it was a rain-affected game. And they got something like 270, rain affected, reduced overs, and we had to get something like 210 or 212 off 32 overs. And we thought, oh well, we'll give it a go. And I think TU hit a 6 over cover in your first over. Jacko and James got going, and we got to the last ball. We were 9 down, needed 4 to win. And Tricky Wilson goes out to bat, and the last ball was a leg side full toss. All he had to do was get a bat on it, and it was a win. But it bowled him. So, but an absolute cracker match.
Yeah, it was a good game, but not a nice one to be on the receiving end of.
Great match to film.
I was keeping, and I didn't really know what to do. Everywhere you bowled, he just seemed to clear the ropes. It was, and again, yeah, good.
For me, I mean, I've got to say it's one of my favourite matches to watch of yours as well. And I just think it was one of those moments of just pure hitting that, and wherever anybody put it, I mean, all right, a bit towards the end, I think James came back on, didn't he, and sort of tied him up a little bit in the later stages, but. Yeah, I mean, some of that hitting was just unbelievable. And
And do you know what though? Sanderstead is renowned for having short, straight boundaries, which it does. But a lot of those sixes were relatively large. They cleared the rope by some way. So, yeah.
Excellent. And moving on to you, Tyler, can you think of one that you've played in that stands out more than others?
I mean, there are lots of matches that stand out for personal, selfish reasons. But I think any of the Trust, Surrey Trust League wins, I think we did it back to back a couple of times, and they're special. I think mainly because we were probably underdogs, and this is certainly the earlier Trust Leagues was where Dan started out filming. So, and a close bunch of young mates to suddenly taste that sort of success was certainly enjoyable. So,
Neil, do you have? I don't know if you know anything about the Trust League. What it is, it's a sort of intermediate thing on a Sunday, 40-40 game, and it's about you have to have. I can't remember the numbers. It's something like 8 players under 21, 4 of which have got to be under 18 or something, and the rest of the other sort of 3 or 4 could be whoever you want. So you can mix your top first team players with 14-year-olds, but give them a competitive format within which to do it, and it's just brilliant. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, it's not fair when you've got Simon Carter, our senior pro, playing in this." But that is the point. The youngsters that play in it get so much from it, and we won it the first 2 years we were in it. We were unbeaten for 2 years because our youngsters were so damn good. Jacko was an 18-year-old or 17-year-old, 16. James was 15. Johnny Longcock was 15, 16. They were such good players, and it's a really, really good format. It's those players that have then come through into the first team and got us to where we got to. So it's got a lot going for it. I don't know if you've got anything like that in Lancashire, but
it's something we've discussed in great detail, Dan, and in fact actually prompted us to actually withdraw our Sunday team this year and actually make them into a third Saturday team.
Okay.
We've discussed it in depth, Dave, in terms of I think something like the Surrey Trust League up here would work superbly. I mean, do you want to explain the difficulties we found ourselves in terms of people playing players that potentially weren't adequate for that level of cricket?
Yeah. I mean, we sort of found ourselves, we had, I suppose you'd call a true Sunday team playing in our Sunday competition, which was essentially our third 11 for the players who weren't selected for the two Saturday teams. And when they started making, their sort of appearances in the Sunday League, they were coming up against invariably teams who were of a similar standard and ability to them, or similar teams with putting out an actual Sunday team. But in the last couple of years, what we've seen is essentially some of the bigger teams putting in a Sunday side, primarily just to give their Saturday players a second game. And perhaps some of the rules that allow people to play in the Sunday, I think it's if you're under 21, you can have played in the first team. There's no restriction on numbers if you're under 21. So we found ourselves where we had our junior players coming up against late teenage years first teamers from other teams, and it just simply wasn't a fair contest. So we weren't getting any proper cricket for them. So we took our Sunday team out of the Sunday League and we've put them into Division 6 on a Saturday, where they're coming up against genuinely people of a similar standard. Gives them a better chance to have a proper bat and a ball. Really.
Did you find that a lot of the players that played for you on a Sunday were willing to play on a Saturday or could play on a Saturday? Because we have a couple of players that are very dedicated to Sunday cricket because that's what works for them.
Yeah, we found that as well. We found the people could say, I can play a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm not available for both because, not unreasonably, they want to make plans and do other things. So we felt it was just all round to give them more regular cricket more often and just a better standard for them to actually progress and develop. So I think actually if we had something like that with maybe some tighter rules around who can play, I think that would really help for our Sunday cricket in the Power Shield. I don't know if you agree with that, Neil.
I think the Surrey Trust system, if employed with the Power Shield, would have taken away a lot of the ambiguity in terms of decisions made of who can play and who can't. And I think ultimately from that point of view, that would have made everybody's lives easier and would have dictated how clubs entered the competition. So, yeah, I think it's a shame from our point of view because I think ultimately what we're going to do now is use the Sundays as Dan, what you've done with the village side Sunday wise, and use it purely as on a friendly basis and purely for guys to access cricket who want to go out there and have a more relaxed environment. And that works for you guys as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Our Sunday stuff. It's very inclusive, not competitive. Although we do try to win, as do the opposition. But it's a lovely contrast to the sort of cut and thrust of the Saturday league stuff. We have a laugh.
Excellent. So just going to move on to a final couple of questions from me. I guess this is something, again, from maybe different eras, but what's the best performance you've ever seen for Sanderstead?
I'm happy to start. I can remember one, not that my memory of cricket matches is amazing. George Jackson scored a big 100 against, I don't even know, Dan, do you know who it was to win? It was a game where there were deer in like the opposite field.
Well, and wasn't it the match? Because I was going to mention that game. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I was on holiday, and me and James were in, I don't know where we were, in Spain or something, and we were following it by getting text updates from Johnny Longcock's dad who was on a cruise getting updates from Johnny. So it's sort of thing. But as I understand it, Jacko and Simon had to go at 10 and over for like the last sort of 12, 13 overs, and they did it. I mean, I just, you know, so would have loved to have had that on film. It would probably have been the best game I would have on film. Went right down to the last couple of balls, didn't it?
Yeah, and George is a strong lad, and he was hitting some very clean balls that day. It was, yeah. I mean, I apologise that I can't remember the opposition, but.
Dan, what about yourself? I expect you've seen some. I mean, we saw that video you released from the late 90s that you found in your archive. I expect there's been some performances you've seen over the years.
Well, the guy who hit the 4 consecutive sixes in that game was my spin twin. He was one of the guys I was at Norwich with, and got me down to Sanderstead. He's a 6'5" leggy, and I was at the other end bowling flat offies. And you know, we just bowled in tandem for sort of 20 years, going, you know, in first 11 and then coming down. But he was spectacular when he would get batting, because he just tries to hoik everything to leg. Hasn't got a defensive shot in his armoury really. But boy, when he gets going, he's also. One particular game that I do remember very well was down at Sevenoaks in Kent. It was a Sunday game, and we needed 60 to win off the last 4 overs, and Chris was in batting. And there's a game of bowls going on at square leg, and he was just peppering the bowls green, and they actually stopped playing after a while. But he won it with a ball to spare. So that was probably you know, one of the great you know, really good memorable moment that I've actually sort of played in.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a few general questions done about Sanderstead and Dan and Tyler's experiences. We're going to move on to Dave now, going and do some of the dressing room character questions that we've done with some of the pros and some of the other guests we've had. So we've amended these a little bit, but Dave, over to you.
Yep. Cheers, Neil. So just put you on the spot with a couple of quick fire questions on characters from the dressing room, both present and past times. So we kick off with the first one, which is something very dear to Neil's heart. Which player in the dressing room would be the one most likely to forget their subs?
Tyler.
Oh, dear.
Not at all. I knew Dan would say that as well.
Cheers, mate.
So swiftly moving on. Next question.
Oh dear.
Dropped you right.
Started well. So the next one we have is, who would be the last to arrive at the ground? Who's got probably the worst punctuality?
Yogi.
Okay.
Yogi, he's great. We love Yogi, but yeah, he can't keep time, can he?
You tell him the game starts an hour earlier just to get him there for the second innings. It's
that sounds familiar.
I'm going to say we know that all too well with some of the members, don't we? Let's be honest, Dave. So yeah, it sounds like an ongoing trait along many cricket clubs. That one.
Yeah. Although I think he's getting better. I think he was better last year. And he was turning up to nets on time. In fact, he was turning up to nets, which never happened.
I was going to say.
We did okay last year. I think by 1:30 start, most weeks we had 11 players. So
yes, it's always helpful. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have to forfeit the toss, then it's okay.
I think last year, I think there was a game, was it a year or two ago? I think quite a few players in Venison. I think Neil ended up stuck in some traffic jam on the M6.
Yes.
And I had to go on the toss, and I think we only had 6 players when we actually tossed up. So yeah, we have been a little bit tight for time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the third question we have is, who will be the most likely to fall out with an umpire?
I'm going to throw a rogue one out there. This is probably more appropriate when teams have to provide their own umpire, and certainly lower down the leagues, I've seen this a little bit where there might be some questionable decisions. I'm not going to accuse anyone, but Simon Carter loves the game to be played fairly. So if there's a sniff or a suspicion, then he's not a fan of any kind of favouring of the home side. That's for sure. But I think Jalen as well. Jalen is definitely.
He can be quite feisty. But again, fairness. He hates unfairness.
Exactly. I think that's what it most stems down to.
Yeah, and when you're young and although Simon's not, then you tend to sort of forget all your inhibitions and.
Yeah, but if you just smile and wave and sweeten them up a bit, you might get a naughty little LBW.
Well, absolutely right.
As a young leggy, there was definitely a few shouts in there that went my way. I think
they're definitely worth keeping on side, the umpires, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing we have noticed while we've been doing this is it does tend to be the bowlers are the ones that sort of get more annoyed with the umpires than batters. It's definitely. I mean, I know they rely on the. I said they rely on the umpires more. I guess as a batter, you're relying on that umpire, like you say, being as fair as possible and making the correct decision. But we have noticed very much more it being bowlers who are the ones.
But see, I think that's because that's got to be due to like position of power. Whereas as a batsman, you're pretty helpless if you've been given a shocker. You have to walk off it. If you have to walk, off at the end of the day. But as a bowler, you can stroll back to your mark, staring at the umpire, maybe whisper something, and then you just get to go again. And that's cricket, isn't it? Why would you be a batsman when that's what Chris Aisherman says, Dan?
Yeah,
bowlers always get another go.
It's true, and whilst I think it's unfortunate, there seems to be a trend that the umpires do give in to that sort of bowler pressure more. I mean, fielders certainly a lot of teams down here can be hugely aggressive in their appealing, and some of the umpires, they give up their Saturday, and certainly if it's second innings, and they can see that the batting team's probably not going to get there anyway, then they get very trigger happy and succumb to the pressure, which I think is a real shame. I don't know what it's like for you guys.
I mean, from my point of view, Dave knows this question was very much prompted by some of my own experience. I've not got the best history, as Tyler says, particularly with club umpires. So we have panel umpires down to division, about 2 or 3 divisions down if you include one division that's split into 2. And so we've got club umpires every week in our second team because we're in Division 4. And it's a tricky one, Dan, because I as one of the more, as captain of the second team, I've got to set a good example. But as you say, it can sometimes be difficult, as Tyler says, in terms of both Simon and James wanting to have that element of fairness. That's the thing that grates most. Is if my own son was even saying to me the other day, you always say, Dad, that if he's bad for both sides, then that's all right. Yeah, that's the lesser of two evils, I guess. Because if it's just somebody who is just not making good decisions, then it is what it is. But I think we had a couple. We've not had many bad umpires, I guess, Dave, for a good couple of seasons. But was it last year we had 2 or 3 that were just seemed downright not great?
I think what Neil's trying to say is, in answer to this question, the answer is him for us.
Very good.
Yes. Well, again, I'm now bowler turned batter, so I see it from both sides. So I can take that one. Go on, Dave. Off you go.
So the next one we have is who is the most likely to enjoy their tea break the most?
Well, we both love the tea break because we often film it. Tyler, tell everyone about teas.
I love the tea break.
Yeah.
My father always said that you judge how good a cricket club is by their teas, and I think that's true, certainly to a certain extent. But obviously, a lot of us love our teas. But George Jackson piles his plate up more than anyone, so you do not want to be behind him in the line. And Jack Sadler, he's definitely featured a few times. He doesn't ever eat the tea. He'll bring a packed lunch every time, which consists of it's questionable, like is rye bread or something, and that's pretty much it. I don't know. Yeah, so I think he enjoys it, but for personal reasons, I don't know.
That's an interesting one. I don't see many people bringing their own tea. That's.
No, it's either no tea or, fill your boots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I think bringing it back to the current situation, my understanding is that bringing your own tea is going to be something that will have to happen. You're not going to be allowed, if there is recreational cricket, you're not going to be allowed to serve a tea.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So that will be interesting. We'll film that. That'll make these interesting.
Jack Sadler's ahead of the game. He's been practicing for years.
Yeah.
It'll have to become teas packed lunches then from now on.
Yeah.
An important question as well on teas. Pizza, yes or no?
100%.
Yeah.
I love pizza.
I've got to say, I'm with you two. I don't know why Dave's pulling a face. Yeah.
In a cricket tea, though.
I think. What's your staple in a tea then?
A couple of different types of sandwich, your sausage roll, your Scotch egg, maybe a little pork pie, some crisps, maybe a little piece of chocolate cake or a Victoria sponge, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The classics. Pizza's getting a little bit too left field for me.
I've seen Sanderstead did a whole roast chicken. It must have been 2 seasons ago. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we've. I think if you ever get to come on a tour up to our area, guys, the one place you want to try and go is a place called Thornton Cleveley's, just near to Blackpool. It has the title of Thornton Cream Teas. It is quite literally the best teas in the league ever. They are superb. So we better give Thornton Cleveley's a shout out if we're talking teas, because
are they cream on the bottom, jam on top?
Oh, do we get into this conversation now?
Should we leave that for another time?
I've got to say, I'm not a scone. Oh, I say a whole nother conversation again. I'm not a scone fan myself. Dave, are you, Dave?
I'm a fan of the Devon cream tea. Yeah, I'd be cream then jam.
I think that's my preference for sure.
Definitely.
See, we're covering off all the big issues again. Fire away with this last one then, Dave.
Yeah. So last question we have for you is, who would be the player you would least like to be in lockdown with?
Well, while you're thinking about it, T, I've got one because I'm in lockdown with one of our players at the moment, James. So
two of our players actually, Dan.
You're two, Lucy as well. Yeah. So that's pretty nightmarish. No, it's not. Yeah. Who have you got, T?
I don't know. I know who I'd like to be locked down with.
Go for that one then. Go on.
Can I just flip it on its head?
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
I mean, Simon Carter, because A, I could talk to him for hours, but B, he has like the nicest cricket net with a bowling machine that has the image of the bowler running in and releasing the ball.
Oh my word.
And he has 120 balls, I think, that you can just load up, program each one, and just bat. So, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad place to be locked down. I think Simon's probably been practicing hardest out of everyone.
Yeah. I was going to say, he must have about 120 practice balls more than us.
Always look on the bright side, Dave.
Very true.
I believe Simon was due to be first team captain this year. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think providing we get some cricket, that's still the case. Yeah.
Excellent. And just, well, obviously that I would tee Dave up. That was the last question of the dressing room characters. But whilst we're on that, if we can touch on that, it's something that I've spent in my. I was first team captain for a number of years. I'm now second team captain. It's something that I've always pondered in terms of what you feel makes a good captain. I know Tyler just said you could speak to Simon for hours, and I presume that's picking. I know Simon's played at a very good level, and picking his brains, a lot of cricket knowledge. I'll ask all three of you, in fact, what do you think makes, and Dave, I know you play for me, so please don't hang me out to dry. What makes a good captain?
Shall I have a crack? I mean, I think that I think that a captain needs to be, above all else, a good leader and someone who understands a lot of different personalities, because that's the captain has to be there to get the best out of the players, not necessarily to be the best player or one of the top players. In fact, a lot of the best captains are often players that might not ordinarily get in the team. And I think Greg Pettifor, who was our captain for our meteoric rise from Div 5 to Div 2, probably wouldn't have got in the side on as a player, but as a captain was great. He just knew how to get the best out of the players. Was a great motivator. And T, well, you played for him, T, so I didn't. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I played with Greg through my kind of second 11 career and then into the first 11. So played under him a lot. And I would agree with everything you said, Dan. I think just if you're with him in the dressing room and you understand kind of how he talks and then the individual chats that he has. And I think with Greg, he would always talk to everyone on the field. Vice captains are obviously key. And I think that partnership is super important. But the keeper is equally important, and then the bowler and everyone in the team is going to have an opinion. So it's kind of being able to take that and then kind of form your own judgment of what's best. And I think that's what made him pretty successful.
It's interesting you touch on that, Tyler, actually, in terms of that almost sort of captaining by committee a little bit, because I know it's something that we've had a chat about specifically in the second team, Dave, in terms of whilst we've had a vice captain, yourself included in the past, Andy, our wicket keeper, and we've generally felt that a wicket keeper is a good influencer because he can see the game and see how it's panning out and see the field pretty well. But certainly having, taking advice from, and even in my case, I'll speak to, as you said, Tyler, speak to the bowlers, see what they're feeling, see if they're spotting a weakness in the batsman's defence or something of that nature. I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider in terms of that, input from it. There's more members of the team that can give that quality input than possibly some people can relate to, really.
I think that's right. And I've seen James, he's been down at University of Southampton and he's been playing for a team called St Cross in Winchester. They're a real sort of top club down there. And the captain, does the sort of bowling changes and the overall strategy, but all of the field changes are done by the keeper completely. The keeper has complete carte blanche on the field settings for the reasons I think that you allude to now. And boy, does it work, because I think it takes the pressure off the captain, who's got to think sort of higher level strategy, knowing that the minutiae of field settings is dealt with. Obviously, you've got to trust that person.
I think that works. Sorry, Dan. I think that works really well when the captain and the bowler kind of work out a rough field, and then it's the smaller adjustments that then the keeper makes.
Dave, you've played for a number of different captains at Wharton-le-Dale and seen a lot of different approaches. Anything to add? What's your perspective on?
Probably agree with a lot of what the gents have said. I mean, a captain, I guess, for my view, has to take quite a few contradictory positions. So I totally get and agree with that. There are some occasions where a captain will be worth their place in the team on their captaincy ability, but of course, there are the occasions where they have to be good enough to warrant a place in the team, to score the runs, to take some wickets, whatever it may be. They've got to be obviously adept in not only in the tactical knowledge of the game, but also on the human side. Gene people up. Can I just get one more over out from you, or just keep pushing people towards just get that little bit extra out of them. They need to be, able to command and lead and tell people, this is what I want from you today. And also they need to be prepared to roll the sleeves up and, to get stuck in, whether it's just batting out one end for 20 overs to try and avoid defeat in a game, or if it's they have to be the last person down at the ground doing all the jobs at the end of the game. And it's so difficult. And, for all the ribbing that I give Neil on a weekly basis on these podcasts, he's head and shoulders one of the best captains that I've played under, just willing to do whatever is needed to get a good team out on the field, a team that has a fun time, plays with a smile on its face, but also plays fair and tries to go about things the right way. And I don't think you can really ask more than that, really, from
and
the captain on the side.
Tenner is in the post, Dave. Thanks very much for that.
I was going to say,
Only a tenner. Only a tenner.
I was going to say, isn't that lovely? We can't see Neil's face while he's saying it.
I've got exceptionally red, Dan. I've got to say that's
very good.
I mean, I think I'm not blow my own trumpet, but I would just explain that I think that's exactly how I approach it. I want to touch on something with yourself, Dan. I know we're running out of time a little bit now, but in terms of being involved with your kids in cricket, as I have two of my kids who play in the second team with me, and I think from my point of view, what Dave touched on there is getting everybody involved, but in a way that it doesn't take away from the competitive element. I think it's key to try and blend those involvement, development, and competitive elements all into one. And as Dave says, ultimately at the end of it, come out with a fun experience, which, let's face it, that's what we're all in it for.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
So, right, I think we're drawing to a close, gentlemen. I just once again want to massively thank you both for coming on. I'm trying to extol the virtues of Sanderstead to Whatleydale members. I've just been fascinated ever since I first saw. I think probably the Weybridge Vandals game was about the promotion game would have been about the first one I saw. And you've certainly kept myself entertained during lockdown and catching up with all the multitude of videos, watching them for about a fifth time. And it's been great to get your view and maybe find out a little bit more about Sanderstead that some people didn't know. So thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having us, guys. Yeah, it's been great.
It's been great.
We wish you all the best with the podcast.
Thank you very much. Dave, once again, thanks very much for coming on and asking some questions.
Cheers, Neil. Thanks, guys.
And I will apologise for my camera breaking. Hopefully, on my edited version, you will have seen my face. Hopefully so. So, thanks again, Dan and Tyler, for coming on. Thanks, everybody, again for watching.
Cheers, guys.
Up the Dale podcast. And we shall see you again soon.